talking about the history of consulting is a little bit like going back in life and thinking about my career. I actually, this is going to be difficult for you all to believe, but I'm a professor in the accounting department. I teach tax and accounting. And yet, from 1956 until 1963, at Case Institute of Technology at Western Reserve University, I flunked out twice and finally got a degree, not in accounting, but in something called industry. It was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Spent 4 years in the Air Force, bought guided missiles and propulsion systems for the Atlas, Titan, Minuteman missiles. Learned more about business in those 4 years than I ever learned in college. Learned how to negotiate and got some really good tricks about if you want to get something done, how to get it done. The other people don't want to do it. I started with Arthur Andersen in 1967, first job basically out of college other than the Air Force, here in Cleveland. I became a partner in 1975 and basically did tax work until 1993 when the firm asked me to become their firm's grassroots lobbyist, which meant I flew around the country to all kinds of nice places and tried to get accountants basically in the 6 firms to get their people to vote for and push Congress to pass the Private Securities and Litigation Act of '95, defeat Prop 211 in California, which would have reversed the PLSR of '95, pass another federal bill in '97, and create LLPs and LLCs in 54 United States jurisdictions, which we did. I retired in 1998. And then the firms asked me to come back and run the coalition that was doing that, which I did for a year. And my firm asked me to come back and be the lobbyist again for another couple of years until my firm went under, as everybody knows, because of Enron in 2002. That's a whole other story. I can give a speech on that, and it'll take 25 minutes at least before Q&A. But that's sort of my background. It's been very varied. I've done tax work, audit work, I've done consulting work. Lobbying is a little bit like consulting, except it has a little more BS with it. You have to have talking points and never have more than 3, but talk to legislators or their assistants. With that as a background, let me ask a quick question of the group. Who was the first consultant? Anybody want to guess? Who was the first consultant? It was the serpent that told Eve to eat the apple. Because it wouldn't hurt. Can't think about that. What is a consultant? Someone wants to find it as someone who finds a problem that doesn't exist, solves the problem, and bills $50,000 for the effort. Not a bad definition, actually. The actual first sort of real consultants were a husband and wife team named Frank and Lillian Galbraith, pre-World War II. There's a great movie with Clifton Webb called Cheaper by the Dozen. They actually had 12 kids. That's the title of the book. And Frank Galbraith designed what at the time was called time and motion study. You think about the early 20th century. The Industrial Revolution was still in process. Manufacturing was a very labor-intensive kind of thing. And he found a way to analyze what people were doing in the manufacturing process. And then look at it and say, wait a minute, if you just did it this way, you could spend or save an hour on every product. And he went around and did this at a whole bunch of companies. Became world famous, died in either a shipwreck or a airplane crash sometime in the 20s. His wife Lillian took the business over basically and ran it until she passed away. So they were, I forget what the company's name was, I think it was just Galbraith Inc. or something. But they were the founders of sort of the history that came after that. After World War II, you had McKinsey and Company, Boozell and Hamilton. How would you like to have the last name of Booz? Hi, Mr. Booz. Want to go out for a drink? And A.T. Carnegie. And these companies tended to acquire very small companies and became sort of the master consultants of, in terms of management consulting. In the 60s, there were 8 accounting firms called the Big 8. And they all looked at it and formed their own kind of consulting practices. And Anderson, I was there at supposedly the ground floor. Originally it was called Operations Research, which was the sort of the educational underpinnings of consulting. Then it was called Administrative Services, which we did tax work, audit work, accounting work, and we did administrative services, like we help people administer the business. Then it was called the Management Information Consulting Division. And then finally it was called Anderson Consulting, when we decided we could really call ourselves consultants. And to show you how bad it was when we first started, I was a brand new tax partner in probably 1975 or 74. And the Office of Managing Partner said, we've got these 3 consulting guys that are sitting here doing nothing. If any client says, could you bring somebody out that can help solve this computer problem, take them out to the client. So I had this architectural partnership up at Shaker Square. And the guy called me, he says, Lee, he says, I'm trying to install my first computer here for bookkeeping and keeping track of time and what have you. And do you have anybody down there that can do that? Aha, 17 gold stars. I'll take one of these guys out there. So of course I take out the guy that doesn't have his own car. He takes the rapid train from Shaker Heights downtown every day and walks to the office. So we drive out, we're talking about what the company does. We go into the meeting and it's all the partners, there were 4 partners in the architectural firm. I introduce him and he goes and makes a presentation and refers to me as Lou 14 times. Well, Lou told me this and Lou told me that, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to correct him, he's a partner. I think I was a senior manager. So we get in the car, I drive back to the office, there's a full message. It says, call this client. Hello, Lou, you're not going to get the job. If he didn't know what your first name is, how the hell is he going to know what our problem is? Click. So that was sort of my introduction to trying to get people to work with Anderson Consulting. The whole Arthur Anderson Consulting story is really one that would take a much longer time than we have here today to talk about, but short version, Reader's Digest. At one point in time, the firm was together. It was all AC and Anderson people working together. And at one point in time, there was almost this schism where the firm was going to pull itself apart. And cooler heads prevailed, and the answer was, well, let's just have 2 silos. We'll have Anderson Consulting, we'll have Arthur Anderson. But we're going to have separate financial statements. Uh-oh. What that proved was that Anderson Consulting was very, very profitable. They were making a ton of money. And Arthur Anderson, tax audit, accounting consultation, was not making a lot of money. So it was crafted a contract so that at the end of each year, the firm that made the most money contributed up to 15% of their profits to the one that didn't. And that worked for a while until things got relatively tense. And the Anderson people said, well, you know what we have to do? We just have to start selling more work. We're going to go out there and we're going to take jobs that maybe we wouldn't have taken 5 years ago, but we're going to take them to make the money so that we don't have this tension between the 2 organizations. And that really was the beginning of the end of the firm, because when they sort of cut their standards to get the additional work or to not lose clients, they became less professional. And we had Enron, WorldCom, just a whole bunch of stuff happened. And it's sad, but it's a sort of a lesson that you should learn, in that if you, once you get out of here and you got a nice job, if you see things like that happening, just remember the old Arthur Anderson story. In addition to Anderson and Anderson Consulting, all the other 4 firms had consulting operations. And when Sarbanes-Oxley came about, which basically said you shouldn't be doing this stuff, KPMG sold theirs, and what they did was they got cash. They used the cash to fund their partner's retirement program in cash. So those guys, when they retired, actually had the money there. PwC sold theirs. E&Y sold theirs. I think that this was Turning Point or something, which is now bankrupt. Doesn't exist. And Deloitte said, we don't care about Sarbanes-Oxley, we're going to keep our consulting practice. They did, and they still have the same consulting practice that they had back then. What is consulting? Anybody here ever consult? Sure. Everybody consults. You just don't think you did. If I came up to Nick, Nick, so what do you think about this? And you give me your opinion. That's consulting. Consulting is merely giving your opinion based upon substantive knowledge. So really, in order to be a consultant, all you really have to do is have a head and know something. That's why you're here, to get the head full of stuff that you can go out and say, well, you know, I think, go ahead and deduct it, it's okay. Like I always tell my tax students, anybody here ever do tax work? Do you do a tax return? Do you think you could deduct your cat's medical expenses? You can't. Or your dog. Do you think it's possible to deduct your cat's medical expenses? Yes. I can give you a fact pattern where you could deduct your cat's medical expenses. Trust me. So, that's being a consultant, being creative, thinking about the stuff that you know, with the facts that you see, and getting somebody an answer. So we all do consult. Judge Judy is a consultant. Oprah is a consultant. Dr. Phil is a consultant. The fortune teller is a consultant. And so is a lawyer, doctor, dentist, an accountant, an engineer. Because once you get past the sort of college preparation, advanced degree, work experience to get enough real life experiences, you're ready to go. And you'll be a consultant before you know it. There are two kinds of consultants. The guys that used to sit around the bar and cheers and give their advice, and the kind of people that do it for money. And I assume you're going to be the, not that you would ever sit around the bar like cheers, but you're going to actually do it for money and try to make some bucks. Remember, to do that you need a springboard. And you also need to know when to keep your mouth shut and not be a consultant. I'll close with my final classic story since we only have 20 minutes. I was a young manager at Anderson, tax manager, and the audit partner said, we're going out to the board meeting at this client. And he said, tell me about all the tax issues, which I did. They were between downtown and about East 60th Street. Told him all the stuff, and he says, all right, don't you say a word unless I ask you a question. Just sit there like you have a zipper in your mouth. He was afraid of what I might say. Oh, okay, I can follow instructions. So we go in there, and he does his song and dance, a little couple slides and things. They get into the board report. He says, oh, why don't you guys stay and listen to how well we're doing? Okay. Chief Operating Officer is reporting on a new product. The metal briefcase going to be designed for the government that will avoid radiation, whatever it is. And he goes, he says, you know, but the problem is, it's such a difficult manufacturing process that we're losing $10,000 in every one of these things we make. Yeah. At the gross profit level. Not the net income, gross profit. Sales minus cost of sales, gross profit minus 10 grand. The chairman of the board says, well, that's easy. Just step up the sales efforts. Think about that. And I kept my mouth shut, didn't say a word. The audit partner didn't say a word. Everybody sat there. And then finally, some board member said, but aren't we just going to lose more money? And you think, this is what's running America, okay? All right. All that proves is that there are not smart people born every minute. So sometimes saying nothing is also a very good consulting move. I'll shut up now and answer any questions about my experience, about my history lesson. Yes, sir.
What do you think was the most interesting or exciting consulting project you ever were part of?
Oh, that's an easy one.
Okay.
There is a law firm in Washington, D.C. called Williams & Conley. Edward Williams was the founder. If any of you ever get in serious trouble, like with the feds, or like maybe you killed somebody, go to Williams & Conley. They will get you up. I was a tax partner in Washington, D.C., got a call from WNC, and my managing partner directed it to me, and the guy says, I'd like you to do a bunch of tax work, forensic tax work with me, which means the guy was already under duress from the IRS. That's what happened. He did a lot of stuff. All of a sudden, in come 6 guys with gold badges and guns, cleaned out the office of all people, took all the records away. This is a CID, Criminal Investigation Division attack, basically. He calls WNC, WNC calls me, and here was the deal. I was responsible for looking at everything the companies had done from that day in the past. And an office in another state was going to take the person's tax information and file future returns. So at the end of the first tax return reporting period that we were talking about, there were about just probably 50 different transactions that could go either way. And so I went over to the WNC partner. I said, look, we got this. He said, I can't tell you what to do. I said, but if I take the wrong position, you guy could go to jail. He said, well, you got to solve the problem. So I went to the managing partner of the DC office, told him what the story was, and he said, well, there's no law against not taking deductions, because these all had to do with depreciation and deductions and stuff. So if you can get the guy to pay whatever the tax rate is on all of his income, we can sign a return. So I go back to WNC and tell the guy, I said, okay, get in the plane, we're going down to Florida. We go down to Florida, talk to this guy, oh my gosh, talk about smoke coming out of somebody's ears, nose, every orifice in his body. Well, I'm not, Guy says, all right, we're leaving then. Handle it yourself. Okay, go ahead. The man paid $500,000 in tax for 4 years. I won't go through all the ignominious details of how WNC worked on this case. The IRS dropped the investigation. So being a judicious tax person, I go back to the WNC partner and say, well, we can file amended returns for 3 of those years because the statute of limitations is still open, and we never signed any papers that said we wouldn't do that. And he says, Lee, sometimes it's better not to be greedy. So we never filed amended returns. The guy never went to jail. He's still a millionaire. I still see his name in the paper, and that was a lot of fun for about 3 years. It was just dealing with the personalities and all the stuff that they had. There were yachts in the Bahamas and hotels in Europe. It's like Jimmy DeMoro to the 8th power. Think about it. Read the plain dealer, and then there's all kinds of other stuff. So that was my best one. Little addendum. About 2012, about 7 years ago, one of my former retired partners, we have a secret retired partners website, and we communicate by email and what have you, was told by an attorney in his city that what we should do is get together, everybody put in a $500 check, pay this attorney a huge retainer, and he would then go ahead and sue the President of the United States, the then Attorney General, I forget what his name was, but he then became something else, and then he's now a consultant. and all the attorneys that worked on suing Arthur Andersen. I thought, yeah, that's smart. Nobody's going to send money. Within a week, they had $50,000. So back then, I was still flying consulting with some of my clients in D.C. on a monthly basis. And I called my old friend at Williams & Connolly, and I said, do you have half an hour? He said, oh, sure, come on over at 4:30 this afternoon. Now, when I knew him when we did the fraud case, he had an office, you know, maybe from here over to the doorway, just a regular junior partner's office. So I go to the receptionist. Oh, yeah, he's up on the 4th floor. Walk in, the office is as big as this room. Huge desk, windows on 3 walls. He obviously did quite well. He comes in, he has a little private bathroom. Oh, hi, Lee, how's everything? Blah, blah, blah. What's it? What, you want a drink? I said, well, no. He pushes a button, the bar comes up, just like in the movies. He said, oh, come on, I'm going to have this at the end of the day. Let's just... So I tell him this story. This is where relationships are important. And he said, you could sue Chertoff because once he gets out of office, he's suable. But there's probably the law of sovereign immunity that will protect him. You could sue the president, but only when he gets out of office. But do you guys really want to sue the president of the United States for destroying Arthur Andersen? Which, of course, he did, because then the Supreme Court had said we didn't do anything wrong. Tell your people no. I said, okay, can I use your name? He said, no. You use the name of Williams & Connolly and say, in their professional opinion, don't do this. You know how much that would have cost if it was a real, $50,000. I got it for, got a free drink besides, because of the relationship. And so, go through life, never throw away a business card, call people up periodically, say, how the heck are you? I'm in town, can we get together for a drink or lunch or whatever? Because you never know when that relationship can pay you big dividends. Long answer to a short question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
What do you think is the biggest asset to a future consultant's career? Would it be like soft skills or technical ability?
If you come out of this school, you're assumed to be smart. You're assumed to have technical skills, but you better be able to talk, walk, and write. The 3 most important things. You got to be a little bit almost intuitive when you go into a meeting. What do you see in that meeting in terms of what the demeanor of the people is, so that you can communicate successfully? I do a thing in one of my classes, thinker, feeler, sensor, intuitor. Figure out what you are in terms of communication styles, and then try to gauge what you're talking to, so you can change your approach to not be who you really are, but to communicate in the same style that they're going to listen to you better. Hard thing to do, but once you get into it, it's really a lot of fun. I don't know if we teach that anymore in 250, 251?
Not that particular.
Not anymore? Didn't Mary used to do that?
Well, we've done the Myers-Briggs.
Oh, that's thinker, feeler, sensor, intuitor. Same thing, yeah. Okay. Yeah, in that, if you can't talk, you can't talk the talk and walk the walk. So anytime you get a chance to do a public speech, anytime you get the chance to interact with people, get on a team, become a team leader, this is the best practice that you can. Because when you do it in your first job, it counts. And you may not get promoted. That's why they call this school. I know it's a lot of fun to go out weekends and get drunk. And I did it for 6 years, so I know how it works. That's why it took me 6 years to get through school, but I still survived. And did fairly well. And now I'm standing up here talking to you guys. See? Anybody else? All right. Thank you for your attention.